I don't think we came out as strongly as I would have liked, but I would say this team is trying to find their identity, they really are. And they are there fighting for it. Boom, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. Because what you're about to hear today changes everything if you love women's college basketball breakdowns, drama, inside stories, and all the jaw-dropping moments the NCAA season delivers. Then smash that like button right now, today. Oh, today we've got a big one because Dawn Staley, yes, the legendary head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, just got brutally honest about her team's shocking defeat to the Texas Longhorns last week. No filters, no excuses, no sugar coating. She laid out exactly why South Carolina lost that game, and trust me, some of the reasons are going to leave you stunned. So, before we dive deeper, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you never miss another update. Now buckle up because we're about to break down what Staley revealed, what really went wrong on that court, and how this loss could reshape the entire direction of South Carolina's season. Let's get into it. South Carolina Gamecocks head coach Dawn Staley finally stepped forward last week and delivered one of the most honest, transparent, and emotionally grounded breakdowns of a loss that fans have seen in years. And trust me when I say this, when Dawn's daily talks, people listen. Because this isn't just any coach, this is a legend, a champion, and someone who built a dynasty from the ground up. So, when she takes responsibility, when she speaks openly, when she digs into the truth, you know something major is happening inside that program. After South Carolina's surprising defeat to the Texas Longhorns, the entire women's college basketball community started buzzing. Fans on social media, analysts on television, rival fan bases looking for an edge. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. South Carolina doesn't lose very often, and when they do, it shakes the entire landscape. But instead of hiding behind the moment or throwing out safe cliches, Dawn Staley sat down and delivered the truth in the way only she can. She began by acknowledging the frustration. She said, "The loss wasn't shocking because Texas played well, it was shocking because South Carolina didn't play like themselves." She emphasized that the team lacked the discipline that has defined them for years. Staley said that defensively they were simply not sharp. Whether it was slow rotations, late closeouts, or losing track of cutters, everything felt half a step behind. In her words, Texas didn't do anything we haven't prepared for, we just didn't execute. That's huge. That tells you right away that this wasn't a strategic failure, it was a mental one. She expanded on how South Carolina allowed Texas to control the rhythm of the game from the very first quarter. And if you know Staley's coaching philosophy, you know the Gamecocks never allow an opponent to dictate pace. They set the tone, they force matchups, they impose physicality. But this time Texas was the team that came out swinging. They were aggressive on every rebound, they jumped passing lanes, and they challenged the Gamecocks on every possession. Staley said the defensive discipline wasn't the only issue. She moved into the second major reason for the loss: offensive identity. This is where her honesty really stood out. She said the Gamecocks didn't trust their system. Instead of working the ball inside, instead of moving through their offensive sets and forcing Texas to defend every action, the Gamecocks settled. And when you settle against a physical, confident team, you're playing right into their hands. She talked about how the team drifted toward isolation basketball, a lot of standing, a lot of watching, and not enough cutting, screening, or timing. She said the team played impatient offense, meaning they weren't willing to wait for the best shot. They took the first shot available, and that's rarely the right one. She stressed that the spacing fell apart, the pace slowed down, and players started pressing individually instead of flowing together. Then came the third reason, and this one hurt the most: turnovers. Staley said the Gamecocks committed turnovers at the worst possible times. Anytime they built momentum, anytime they were about to shift the game, a careless pass or a forced dribble shut it down. The timing of the mistakes was what killed them. She said, "We beat ourselves in Stretches, and that was the painful truth. Turnovers turned into fast breaks turned into points, and points turned into control. And when you're facing a team as confident as Texas, giving them that kind of energy is almost impossible to come back from. But then, perhaps the most humbling part of her breakdown, Dawn Staley gave Texas the credit they deserved. She said Texas came in prepared, disciplined, and fearless. They wanted the game more. They played like they had something to prove, and they executed their game plan from start to finish. Staley said the Longhorns were physical, more aggressive, more locked in, and more willing to fight for the 50-50 plays. She said those loose balls, those tip outs, those hustle moments, that's where the game was lost. She said South Carolina didn't bring championship level energy, and Texas punished them for it. But Staley didn't stop there. She also talked about the emotional side of the loss. She admitted that some of her players were shaken early, confidence dipped, mistakes piled up. Texas struck hard in South Carolina never regained control. She acknowledged that this was one of the rare moments where the Gamecocks looked rattled, something fans haven't seen in years. And then came the turning point of her speech, the part that gave fans hope, excitement, and fire. Dawn Staley said, "This loss was a wake-up call. Necessary one," she said. "Sometimes you need to get punched in the mouth early in the season so you remember what it feels like to fight back." She said this wasn't the end, it was the beginning of a new standard. She revealed that after the game, she challenged her team in the locker room. She told them that a South Carolina jersey doesn't guarantee dominance. You have to earn it every possession, every quarter, every night. She said her players responded immediately. Practices after the loss were sharper, louder, more intense. Sessions became moments of accountability. Leaders started stepping up. Rotations were re-examined. Energy changed. She said, "We're going to grow from this. You'll see a different South Carolina team moving forward." And you could hear the determination in her voice. She talked about how adversity builds champions, that the great teams don't run from losses, they use them. And she said she believes this team has the character, the maturity, and the hunger to bounce back stronger than ever. She also spoke about the expectations that come with being South Carolina. She said every opponent prepares for them like it's a championship game. Every team brings their best. That's the price of success. You don't get nights off when you're ranked at the top. And she said her players need to embrace that pressure, not fear it. For the next several minutes, Staley broke down how each position group would need to improve. The guards needed to value possessions. The wings needed to sprint the lanes harder in transition. The post players needed better footwork and engagement on both ends. She explained that everyone had a role to play in the bounce-back. Then she looked ahead. She said this loss wasn't going to define the season. It was going to refine it. She said the team will come out more focused, more connected, and more dangerous. She promised fans that improvements were already happening. She said challenges like this forge identity, and in typical Dawn's daily fashion, she ended with a message of belief. She still trusts her team. She still sees greatness in them. And she still expects them to compete for the biggest prizes in March. Imagine hearing that as a player. Imagine knowing your coach is disappointed in the performance but not in you. That's powerful. That builds champions. Fans online reacted in every possible way. Frustration, confusion, excitement, hope. Texas fans celebrated the win. South Carolina fans wondered what this means for the season. Analysts debated whether this loss exposed weaknesses or simply served as a reminder of the Gamecocks' humanity. But the real truth: South Carolina isn't going anywhere. Dawn Staley isn't going anywhere, and this loss might be the very spark that turns them into a monster by postseason. So now the spotlight shifts. Will South Carolina respond? Will they tighten the rotations? Will they sharpen the execution? Will they reclaim their identity? If you know Dawn Staley, you already know the answer. This team is waking up, and that right there, folks, is the full breakdown of Dawn Staley's Brutally honest reaction to South Carolina's loss to Texas, whether you're a Gamecocks fan, a Texas supporter, or just someone who loves the intensity of women's college basketball. This moment is going to be remembered for a long time. Losses like this don't just sting. They ignite something, and if there's one coach who knows how to turn pain into power, it's Staley. Before you head out, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell me, do you believe South Carolina will bounce back stronger? Do you think Staley's breakdown of the loss was accurate? And what matchup do you want to see next? Texas again, LSU, UConn. Let me know your predictions, your opinions, everything. I read all the comments and I love seeing your takes. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Stay locked in.